Hi, my name is Colleen Lobb, and my project is about determining the different percent MVC in muscle recruitment during eccentric, isometric, and concentric contractions in wrist extensors and flexors. So the wrists are really important for your daily activities. So whether you're reaching for something or whether you're just typing, it helps stabilize your hand should you fine motor skills. It's really important to understand how the muscles are interacting during those movements and how they're recruiting muscle fibers during extension and flexion. And so the purpose of this study is to examine the differences in the muscle recruitment during the different contractions. So it's hypothesized that the wrist concentric contractions will have the highest percent maximum voluntary contractions or percent MVC compared to other contraction types such as eccentric or isometric. So basically how we did this was we took 8 members of our cohort and we placed surface electrodes on their extensors and flexors, and we found the muscle values of these through palpation. And what we did to initially start was we found the maximum voluntary contraction through manual resistance, and we recorded the peak EMG from that value, and we used that value to compare it to the other values collected during isometric contraction, eccentric, and concentric contraction. And basically how we did this was we had them hold a weight, and for isometric they just held it in place for about 5 seconds, but then for eccentric and concentric contraction we had them go through the full range of motion from extension to flexion. And when we look at our results, we found them in the percent max voluntary contraction, and we compared the two to get our end results here. And as you can see, we had incredible variance across all types of contraction for both extensors and flexors. And basically, even when you look at the p-values, which is in table 1, you can see that there was almost no actual statistically significant values. There was when we looked at concentric and eccentric flexion. We can see that the p-value is 0.4. And ultimately from this data set, the main takeaway is that the consent contractions had the highest percent MVC in both extenders and flexors compared to eccentric and isometric contractions. And basically this was consistent with the previous research, and it proved that our hypothesis was correct, but our data still is really statistically insignificant. There was a lot of issues in collecting it. A lot of the testers had never done an EMG before, and I do think that played a part in the data, as well as we used various weights, which I think would have impacted the muscle activity as well. So, but ultimately, what we can take away from this is that there's different types of contractions have different responses in muscle recruitment. And this is helpful when you're a clinician, when you're thinking about ways to exercise or help someone recover from a wrist injury. And it's good to understand kind of the biomechanics and what is working the hardest in the different positions. So hopefully this will be helpful in a clinical setting. So thank you so much for your time.